Welcome to the Graeae and Disability Arts online podcast, Disability and, bringing together thoughtful discussion and debate. This month, Graeae's Creative Learning Director, Jodi-Alissa Bickerton, chats with Ensemble Graduates about their experience on Graeae's Ensemble Training course. Applications are now open for this year's course commencing September 2021. If you'd like to find out more about Graeae's Ensemble Training course, visit www.graeae.org.
Hi, I'm Jodi. I'm Graeae's Creative Learning Director. I am a white woman in my early 40s with long red hair, and I'm wearing a black t-shirt, and I've got a background of a forest behind me, but I'm not actually in the forest. And on this podcast today, I'm talking with three young artists from Graeae's Ensemble alumni, Graeae's Ensemble. Graeae's Ensemble is a drama training program for young actors and theatre makers, providing world-class drama training to support a new generation of deaf and disabled talent to diversify and invigorate the UK theatre industry. Welcome, Ensemblies!
Woo! Hello!
Hi.
Do you know that I call you Ensemblies as an affectionate collective term?
Get it on the emails.
So we have with us today, we have Vanessa Smith, who was with us on the first year of our ensemble. Welcome, Vanessa.
Hello, everyone.
Could you just give a brief audio description of yourself, Ness?
Sure, yeah. Okay. I'm a white woman in my 20s. I'm fairly tall-ish. I've got long blonde brown hair, sort of to the middle of my back, and in the background I've just got my nice big living room.
Thanks, Ness. And on the same year as Ness was on the ensemble, Josh as well, Josh King. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you. My name's Josh. I'm a white male in my late 20s. I have longish brown hair, the longest it's ever been. And I have a grey hoodie on, and in the background is a white wall and a red wall, and you can see sort of the corner of my blind.
Thank you. And lastly, but not leastly, we have Awa Jegni, who was on our 2017 to 18 program. Welcome, Awa.
Hello, listen. So I was Jackie in my early 20s, and behind me I got a white wall with pictures on, and I'm wearing my favourite top and saying, "You are my universe." Yeah.
Thanks, Awa. And I'm just going to go, Vanessa, to you first, because I'm not sure if you knew this, and actually, Josh, you too. I'm not sure if you both knew this, but on the last day of ensemble, Meta and I, Meta is the ensemble coordinator at Graeae, we both sat outside on the pavement outside Graeae and sobbed, absolutely sobbed in the rain.
Oh,
Partly through exhaustion, I think, because it was the first year that we had taken through ensemble and years of dreaming up ensemble, and it finally happened. So we put our absolute heart into it. But also, I think we were just so proud of what you had achieved and had kind of blown away any expectations we had of what that ensemble could be in its first year, and realised that you had flown off to do other things, and we were devastated. Was that your experience too on your last day, or was it completely different?
Speaking from my experience, it was a strange one. It was like sadness at leaving, but also excitement at sort of figuring out what was next and taking in everything I'd learned from the time I was there and putting it into practice and actually seeing what sort of opportunities were out there for me. I mean, I'd never had training like that, so it was just interesting. I mean, I still miss sort of the atmosphere and the rehearsal room, things like that. Just every time I come back and do things, it just floods me with memories.
And Ness, what about you?
It felt like I'd been part of a family. It really did. I was part of a family for 6 months who all shared the same passions to me, all shared the same interests to me. And on my last day, it was just like, yeah, I think sort of similar to Josh. I just felt like part of me doesn't want to go, but then part of me thinks, well, I breathe. I want to make the people that taught me proud of me.
You were living in Liverpool, weren't you, and relocated down to London just for Ensemble. What was that experience like?
Can I be honest or tactful?
Be honest.
It was very challenging. I mean, I'd gone from, to be honest, living at home and having a mum and dad and sister who can do pretty much everything for me if I want them to, you know. Having a little bit of independence, but not that much. To suddenly going from that to, right, you're in a hostel and you're going to have to do this pretty much on your own. There were nuns around to make sure that I didn't burn the place down. But I was pretty much independent. And that was weird because that was the first time for me. And as if the accommodation side of things wasn't difficult enough, I then find out that, hang on a minute, I have to travel somewhere that I've not been to very much before. And I was so relieved when, I think it was Helena, she was in charge of she was in charge of sorting out the access workers. She said that, oh, it's fine because your access worker can go with you. You know, can pick you up and then we'll drop you right to your door again. And that just made me feel really secure.
And it was similar for you, wasn't it? Because you were travelling. Where were you travelling from? Surrey, wasn't it?
Yes. So I was living at Jodi-Alissa in Surrey, and I had to wake up early to get my change, and the worker came to meet me at the station. I then we used to go to London together. Yeah.
And Josh, you were someone else who kind of relocated to London as well, didn't you? From Redditch, I think. I didn't actually all these three out of London people together, but we've got this shared experience.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I managed to find some gigs, and I'd travel up every week. But I think that was just as important as the course itself, is that experience of being somewhere completely different, learning a different place, learning how to get around the place. And at that point, that's where a lot of the industry was focused. So it was just good to know that sort of thing. And I mean, I still remember the first day of Ensemble, arriving late, having all my luggage and everything with me, and not knowing routes or anything. And I remember as I was leaving, I had this massive like rucksack on my back, and it was Rich who showed me where the bus stop is. He walked me there and told me which one to
Rich
get
from
on.
our marketing team.
Yeah, and yeah, it was that in itself was quite daunting, but surprising also how quickly I began to love that, because it's part of the challenge. It's something you have to learn to do.
And you mentioned your first day. What's it? Does everyone, Aaron and Ness, do you remember the first day? What were the feelings around that first day of Ensemble?
I was so nervous on that first day. I was in a room of people that I didn't know, and I was so afraid. What if they don't understand the way I talk? But some people don't understand the way I talk. So I was so nervous that when I get to know them a bit better, I fell in love with them.
Oh, you make me cry. I remember my first day was, my first day, I remember relief, I guess, because I can't remember, I think the trains weren't running or something, but I actually got driven to Graeae in Lizzie's car. Lizzie was my access worker. And I remember feeling relieved because back then the underground used to slightly make me nervous. And then when we got in, I remember feeling at home, but then you got so many new things to think about. I mean, I can remember before I walked in the rehearsal room, I didn't understand the concept of a sign name, for instance, and then suddenly I'm being asked to think about a sign name for myself. I'm like, okay. And I thought, how on earth is this going to work? Because I'm blind, and I think I met Jenny that day, yeah. And our director, Jenny Seeley, is pretty much deaf. And I'm there going, how is this going to work? How are we going to communicate? But I felt relieved because Jenny is more than capable of making herself heard.
She is.
Yeah. It was absolutely fine. Yeah.
And what about the just thinking about if when you're kind of talking about your ensemble experience to others, which I'm sure you're doing all the time, how do you describe it? Like, what were some of the features that stand out for you when you're thinking about you as an actor, training as an actor and theatre maker? What were some of the training that sort of stood out for you and the experiences?
Probably one of the biggest things, because it came to when I was thinking about this the other day. was working with Jenny Bookman on Shakespeare. It's such when you look at Shakespeare, it's one of those things where you look at it and it's a very daunting sort of subject to even get into. There's the speech patterns are completely different, and it's a lot to take in. And people always say, "Oh, you can make Shakespeare fun," but I mean that really stood out to me just from the way that Jenny sort of taught the class. She was so light with the subject. She broke you into it very easily, and honestly, the only person I've come across so far that genuinely can make working with Shakespeare an enjoyable experience. Just that completely stood out to me as something that I'll always remember, and I don't think without her influence I would have taken to Shakespeare the way I did. I mean, I remember working on a soliloquy from Hamlet with her, and I still use that today as part of my repertoire when I'm auditioning. If they ask for Shakespeare, I'm like, oh, this is something that I worked really hard on with someone who taught me so much about the text. So, I mean, it's still one of the things that I can remember word for word, even though I haven't used it in about, I don't know, a year.
Well, and I know what you've just said about Jenny, the late Jenny Buckman, has resonated with others. I think Louis, who was in with you, in Ensemble, and just had Jenny as a mentor, and just learnt an incredible amount because she was willing to pull Shakespeare apart and really re-examine what is it about actually, and make it truly accessible. Not only accessible in the terms of access, but also in terms of actually, here is something so classic. How do we get access to it as young people, and how do we make it relevant to today?
I think it was definitely her breaking it down and going, well, why don't you word it in how you would say these words, and then we'll discuss how to actually bring the Shakespeare to life, because I don't think you can truly understand the work until you put it into your own sort of speech patterns and things like that. And I feel like that is a very important way of looking at anything that could be as daunting as Shakespeare. And yet, I remember standing in circles and she'd just teach us words, and we'd say them in different tones and different things, because the meaning really didn't matter in the end. It's if you understood the feeling.
For me, I like working with the postman.
He's coming back this year too, so that's good.
In one of his training, I really relaxed in his session, and I still use he exercise till this day with my other acting. So he was my best teacher ever. Yeah.
You'd be thrilled to hear you say that. And you raise an important thing there about just those things that stay with you as well. Yeah. Because that's the thing, isn't it? Through your training, we're not just thinking about what we can apply now. It's everything links together, doesn't it? Voice links to movement, links to improvisation, links to the collaboration later on when we're creating a piece together for performance. And then it's about how you use that going forward into your sort of the next part of your careers. Josh, did you want to speak to a little bit of that? When you left Ensemble, what were your expectations of what would happen versus what's happened?
I didn't really have expectations. I didn't know what I was going to do. It's this really strange thing. Before I started Ensemble, I just left college. I'd done a performing arts course, and I didn't feel prepared for anything, and I didn't know what was going to happen next. But when I left Ensemble, I was very lucky with the sort of connections that I'd made within the Ensemble course and through Graeae. I think just having trained with Graeae opens doors that may have been closed to me. if I hadn't trained with you. And I think it's things like another important aspect of the course, which I'd be remiss if I didn't speak about, was the mentorship. Part where I had Stephen Lloyd as my mentor, and he has literally gone above and beyond, and he's still with me on my journey today. I mean, even during the pandemic, we've spoken almost weekly. I'm meeting with him to work on something after the podcast. It's you don't get that sort of thing with traditional training courses, and I think that's something that I really wanted to emphasize, is that when I left originally my first training course before I joined Graeae, I wasn't sure what was open to me, whereas the difference after was I just grown in confidence, and I thought I could at least knock on everyone's door and see what opportunities I could then get. Luckily for me, again through the connections, I've worked with Stephen's theatre company, Amplified Theatre, and other connections through Graeae, like Tom Wentworth and Amy Beth and Evans. I've done shows with them afterwards, and then I just carried on training. I think you never really finish training. You can get this big amount of training done, but then I think probably one of the most important aspects of the ensemble course that really stuck with me as well was, it's not just you get exposed to a lot of different areas within the arts, devising and directing, all these things that when I first started, I was like, oh, I want to be an actor. But then you learn there are so many facets to the industry, and it's important to learn as well as what you like, what you don't like, and what you don't want to follow, so that you can really latch on to the things that are important to you. I always knew that I wanted to act for TV and screen, so I ended up following that path. I've been lucky enough to train with a coach called Christina Chong, who has taught me chub-up technique, and I've just finished filming a short film with her. And then I've also gone on to train with Mel Churcher, who specifically is training me for acting for TV and screen. And again, this high caliber of people that I don't know if I'd have met them without doing the course and building the confidence to contact these people and just say, hey, I've seen your work, or I've read your book. Is there any way I can train with you? And I think that's the importance. You have to make your own path. There are so many confusing avenues that we could go down, but none of them are right and none of them are wrong. And if you travel halfway down one and you decide that it's not right for you, try something else. There's so many things. I mean, if I said, I don't know, even a year ago, when the pandemic started, I wasn't a writer then, but since you want to keep doing things and keep yourself busy, starting writing, it's just, there is no wrong answer.
Well, that's similar for you, Our and Ness as well, isn't it? That discovery of writing, starting out as training as actors, and then going, oh, actually, we can write our own stuff and perform in it. That's brilliant.
Going back to previous questions for a second, because it highlights, like sort of how I am today. Two things really, I guess. I mean, number one, was working with Chris, and him teaching me essentially that having a stammer is okay. That struggling to speak is fine, because it might take me a minute to get the words out, but they'll come. And he taught me that if I have a moment where I'm struggling to get a line out, just pass it off. Pass it off as a dramatic pause. It doesn't need to be a big thing. And then I remember working with Amit, because he doesn't remember that. And
he remembers.
Oh God! I remember two things with him. I think it was on the same day, actually. I remember he was working with me and a girl called Poppy. Poppy was in.
I know her.
Shout out to Poppy.
Woo! One thing that we both struggled with was projection, and just getting us to breathe and getting us to project. And he just kept going and going. I was just like, if he doesn't shut up, I'm going to kill him. No. And then I remember on the same day, I think you were there, Jodi, watching. Yeah. I was rehearsing my monologue from Hamlet. And I can't remember why, but I remember Amit just saying the word grief over and over again, just trying to really push me to feel, well, to feel like I've just lost my dad, essentially. And I can remember that I just started to cry and cry and cry. And I have never performed like that before or since, but what it showed me was I can get into a character. Like, I didn't think that I could really get into a character like that, but I can.
And that was during a really a pivotal time, wasn't it, as well, because we were preparing for our showcase, and I think you had said you were struggling to get there. You were asking, like, how do I get there to that moment, to that point? And you know, and it's crucial that we are being trained by artists who can untap that for us, and who can actually respect that we deserve to get there. And so I'm clarifying the fact that I think when it wasn't on day one that Amit made you cry, it was on day 6 or so. So let's just get that on the record. And you asked.
Wasn't 5 minutes in. No, but it helped because, I mean, I'd gone from I can't project to, on the day of the showcase, asking Lizzie to run up to the back of the room and just tap the back wall. So I could hear how far that I need to project in the theatre.
Is at the Soho, weren't we?
Oh yeah. And just the confidence, and I still have that confidence now. I mean, sometimes she stopped doing it now, thank God. But sometimes my mother will tell me if I'm really struggling to speak, and it's kind of a running joke, but she'll tell me, relax, breathe, now speak. And it's so close to this little rhyme that it'd say, relax and prepare.
If we're thinking about, and you've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but are there any regrets that you have in terms of, you know, not doing ensemble? I know you don't regret that. That's very clear, but are there any regrets within your experience that you think, oh, I wish I would have, or I wish something would have been different? And you can't say me.
Oh.
We would never see you, Jodi.
I'll pay you later, Hour.
For me, I have no regrets of doing it. It was so good to do the tours and make a show out of it and show it to people. Yeah, I have no regrets. And
I don't have any regrets from any specific time in there. I mean, I think probably taking more in and understanding the fact that there is an industry out there and you have different people who are going to direct you in different ways. And I really sort of felt that when Jenny directed me or when Amit directed me, it was a different experience. You have it's a good way in because you've got this safety net to learn and understand how the industry works. I had a better idea leaving than I did going in, and you really want to prepare for that. And I think that's again one of the guiding examples is it's not easy out there. It's not, especially now, but you can prepare for it and you can understand the way the industry works. And it's not sugar coated. And I think sometimes you may get that at places, but you sort of get this is what's expected from you. This is a job. Do your job. And you learn while you're there your weaknesses and strengths, and that is the time to work on your weaknesses while you're safe.
Yeah, that safe space, yeah.
The only thing that I can think that would sort of come as a regret, but it's more of a personal thing, really. I wish that I hadn't needed to rely on the BSL interpreters so much. Chiefly, I mean, one of the performers was deaf. So obviously when he did his monologues, for example, he would do performative sign. Of course, Lizzie, my access worker, should be audio describing for me. And it's like, how do you describe sign language? Like how do you describe sign language? That's and she'd have to grab one of the interpreters that wasn't doing anything at the moment, and they would just sit with me and explain it to me. But I just wish that there'd been a way for me to sort of understand it better.
But Ness, that's access, isn't it? We all need different sorts of access support, and we all use access in a different way. And that was where ensemble, and we come together, and sometimes things aren't accessible, and we need to go, okay, what do we do in this moment? How do we make this accessible for everyone? Because we're having this, and that's, we have time and space to figure it out. So not to kind of say what you have said is invalidness, but like that shouldn't be a regret. Like that's how we want to work, we want to be able to support each other. So and that was a great solution that happened. So what would, if someone is out there listening who is thinking, I want some drama training, don't know much about Graeae, or maybe I know a little bit, and have heard you talk today, but what advice would you give to anyone maybe just considering ever so slightly whether or not ensemble might be something that can benefit their drama training goals?
Well, speaking from experience, I had no idea when I applied about Graeae or any of those sort of things. So I can genuinely say from experience, just why not give it a try? I didn't think that I would be able to do any training or even be a working out. I didn't think I'd be sat here today talking about it. But I think it's important just to give anything a go, because if you don't, you just end up regretting. And I think it doesn't matter, because you've just got to try it. And there is nothing to gain from sitting back and hoping things will happen. I remember filling out the form and genuinely thinking that I'm not going to get this. These things aren't meant for me, but obviously they are, and you don't get anywhere if you don't try. So just give it a go.
And I think when I think Ness, you were on the course, I think it was different to when it's sort of developed since year one, in that there is a week where everyone comes together called the Discover Week, where it's actually meeting lots of different people, having taster workshops. And this is there's an audition at the end of it, and it's a very supportive environment. It's a workshop, and people perform their monologues in any way that's accessible for them, in front of a supportive group. But then that week is also as much about those participants on the program going, is this for me? Do I want to take this forward? And do I want to be part of the ensemble and do the course? So there is that buffer as well. Because Ness, I think you were thrown in the deep end, weren't you, in year one? All the year ones, it was like audition, interview, and then you were straight in there.
Yeah, I remember when, I think it was Meta called me to tell me that I'd been accepted. I think I had to ask her to repeat it, because I was just like, no, I did not hear you correctly. And I remember it was just a mad. I think it was a few days, because we had to organise everything really fast.
Yes, we've learned from those days.
I like that you've got that taster week now, because then people have got time. And my advice to anybody who is considering it, just jump in and do it. You know, if if you do the course, and especially after the taster week, if after the taster week you decide you want to do it, then just do it. But if after the taster week you decide that actually not for me, then that's okay as well.
So we're going to go now to because hopefully the rest of the ensembles, as my Meta and I affectionately call you as a collective noun, our ensembles, maybe some of them are listening out there. So this is your chance, our Josh and Ness. So just a bit of a shout out, a bit of a tribute to some of your fellow ensembles. So thinking about your particular year groups, this is just a quick fire answers. Don't overthink it. The funniest ensemble.
Wow.
Jamal. Okay. That's Jamal from year one. Jamal Ajala. Shout out to Jamal. Okay. The Rebel. Terry.
Yeah. She's just ready to do anything.
What about the person who saw the most theatre?
Helen.
Terry.
Through the best parties?
The Graeae Christmas party.
I thought you were going to say Dave Young. The most reliable ensemble in finding new food on Kingsland Road and coming back to gloat about it.
Oh, God. Louis. It had to be Louis.
Louis. I was thinking you, Ella, but Dobby and Louis there. You would come back with chicken wings and be like, look what I found. I found this new place on Kingsland Road and they're the best chicken wings ever. And then people would be like, could I have some? And you're like, no. They're mine.
Wow.
You would not share your chicken wings. That was great.
Sorry.
It was only chicken wings. Every other aspect, you were hugely generous, Ella. You were just really onto your chicken wings. What about the person who is most consistently late?
Poppy, but then that wasn't her fault.
Okay. Sorry, Poppy. Poppy was here. I'm pretty sure she'd say you, Ness, but that's all right.
Ouch.
Okay, who was the biggest talker?
Ashton.
Ashton. Shout out to Ashton. He always had a good story, Ashton.
I'm going to say Ness.
Oh,
Ness.
shut
Josh.
I'm going to
It's
cry.
true though. When you came in of a day, usually a Wednesday, you'd always spend about 15 minutes. We had to start asking you to come in earlier because you'd spend the first 15 minutes having a cup of tea and talking about something funny that had happened on your way in. Someone had said something, or you'd seen something, or whatever.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, thank you all of you for spending your, what day is it? It's a Thursday morning with us here today. And it's lovely to see you all. And I hope you'll continue to take care in these strange times that we have. But yeah, I hope you all know that even though Ensemble is for you, is in the past, that you have big futures ahead of you as well. And I hope that you'll come back and mentor our next ensembles and give them the encouragement that you had received as well. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Visit Graeae.org and disabilityarts.online for details of productions, events, interviews, opinions, reviews, and learning opportunities.